Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365. There's Hunter Brody. Hit that like button. You might not like McMullen and McDonald or us every once in a while getting into a heated debate about what we do.
No, they love that, Jody. They love that. That's the only thing they love. They hate us, but they love that.
Some do, some won't. We'll see if we'll find out if we get into a heated debate about anything with Hunter Brody. Broads, how are the Eagles going to replace Miles Sanders?
That's a good question. Throw me right in here, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Throw you in the deep end of the pool, my friend.
By committee. I mean, that's probably like the least sexy answer ever, but you throw DeAndre Swift in there and you just go by committee and let Kenneth Gainwell build off of what he did at the end of last season, and Boston Scott against the Giants is automatic for 75 touchdowns. So, between that and Jalen Hurts continuing to use his legs, they'll just find a way by committee. Who knows? Maybe Trey Sermon gets into the mix too. You can't rule that out.
Yeah. Well, Nick Sirianni keeps bringing him up out of nowhere, so maybe that is the case. I will say, I don't like committees, bros. If I say I don't like committees, I need a damn lead back. Who's going to be the lead back? I don't want to hear committee. I want a lead stinking back. Who's my lead
that's
back?
Fine. Maybe that's Swift if he can stay healthy. So maybe someone throughout this journey establishes themselves as the guy, and then they move forward with it. We know they're going to implement others, and you know how that works. But maybe someone does grab it by the horns and take it for a ride at some point.
If I told you that Jalen Hurts will lead the Philadelphia Eagles in carries this year, would you be surprised?
No, not at all. Not even a little bit. No, I don't know. Does that upset people because they want him to take a step back?
Yes. There's a percentage of Eagle fans go, we can't get him killed now. He's our $250 million man.
Yeah, but this is where it's a problem for me. Now, I understand there's a balance, but if you remove that element from his game, you're losing the power of what he provides and the threat that he is. So you got to find the equal balance. Of course, you don't want to throw him out there and have him take a billion shots, but I don't know. I think he's a smart runner out there. How many times do you see him kind of turtle and slide down because he knows someone's coming? Like he's a smart football player. I trust him more than some others. Like others will. I don't know. I mean, he's not like Shady McCoy. He's got one hand on the ball and he's just running around and, guys are flying around. I mean, he's a smart quarterback. Let him take the carries and we'll see where it gets us.
I mean, I'm going to throw this at you, bros. We talk about this every offseason. I talk about it. Everybody talks about it. You've talked about it. Jody's talked about it. Everybody thinks they can legislate injuries. Where is there evidence of anybody being able to legislate an injury? I look at somebody like Rashad Penny. The first day I met him, I go, this guy's a brick. How this guy is just unbelievable. And he tears his ACL. He breaks his fibula. Those aren't like soft tissue injuries where maybe somebody's taken 5 weeks to come back from a 4-week injury or whatever people think they should come back from a hamstring or what have you. Why do people think they can legislate what can't be legislated?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're right. You can't foresee this stuff coming. Who would have thought that Brandon Graham would have the Achilles, then he comes back and has 11 sacks? No one would have thought that would have been the case. So just from the angle of you can't predict this stuff, you can't predict it. Carson Wentz, he's not the guy who's running around the field like Lamar Jackson or any of these other mobile quarterbacks, but then there goes his knee when he got hurt in the year they won the Super Bowl. So, it's like what they want to do is find an angle to justify their take. So if there's someone who believes that Jalen Hurts shouldn't run more, well, then of course they're going to utilize the injury factor and say that he can't run the football more. And, they just try and, I guess, use the injury side of the discussion to defend whatever they feel.
All right, Broads. John and I always get off on this tangent, but I think it's a debate worth having.
Sure.
Eagles throwing the ball to running backs. However they're going to do that, whatever the formation is, a running back making a catch for the Philadelphia Eagles. Last year, limited at best. They didn't do it very much. There were reasons for it. Miles Sanders was on the field most of the time, and that's not a Miles Sanders strength. It was his rookie year and just kind of disappeared on him. They add Swift this year, who's been very good at it during his Lions time. people like you've already said, oh, Kenny Gainwell in the playoff had one really good playoff game. And people say the entire playoff run.
Look at this guy.
Do I need to show you the stats from the other 2 playoff games that Kenny Gainwell didn't do all that? Phenomenal against the Giants. The other 2 playoff games, people just blatantly overstate what he actually did. But one of his strengths is catching the ball out of the backfield. Is that going to be a bigger factor of the Eagles' offense this year, throwing the ball to the running backs?
Yes. And I can't wait to see it. I actually feel like Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen felt handcuffed because of Miles Sanders. Now, maybe they have more information than we do. You mentioned there was a time, or maybe that was more a part of his game, and it wasn't as his Eagles tenure continued to move forward. But I thought they felt as if, and their offense was powerful. They could score at will, but there was probably more to be desired. And I think that they felt like there was another layer to this and a whole nother tier for this offense to move, but they just couldn't because they didn't buy into Miles Sanders in that way, and maybe there was a reason for it. I'm a big believer in the passing game with the running backs, and I think that's one of the reasons why maybe Miles Sanders isn't here. It hindered what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Miles was a great pass receiver. That's no great unveiling of a philosophy, and DeAndre Swift has already proven he can do it in Detroit. He's got like 150 receptions over 3 seasons. Kenny Gainwell, I think, is really good at it. People just don't know it because the Eagles don't do it. But here's the thing, bros. I think they don't do it because of the quarterback. The quarterback can get more than just dumping the football off to the running back. And, if they had Phillip Rivers, as Nick Sirianni had in the past, they'd be throwing the football to the running back all the time. And then here's the second part that I think I don't bring up often enough. AJ's always open. It's his Twitter handle, always open. And he is. Even when he's not open, he's open because of his size and his ability. Devontae Smith, one of the best route runners in the NFL, always open. Dallas Goedert, one of the best tight ends in the NFL, always open, even though he doesn't believe in the moon landing. Yeah. I'm never getting to the running back because these guys are always open.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. No, you're right. I mean, normally if you're getting to the running back, at times it's, you're checked down and it's in the flat or something like that, and you're just getting the football out. And at that point, after you look through so many progressions, if someone's not open, which you find it hard at that rate, maybe Jalen Hurts uses his legs, picks up 7 and slides, or he gets the first down and runs out of bounds. So maybe that's a big part of this. I don't know. The most intriguing thing, and I don't think I'm breaking any news here, but with these 2 new coordinators, I like what I heard from Sean Desai on the defensive end when he spoke a while back, but that relationship between Hurts and Brian Johnson, like, I'm ready to see what these 2 are going to be like as a relationship. And if they are going to try and dial back Jalen Hurts with his legs to a little more of a degree, maybe that's something that does get incorporated. When you don't see your first 3 progressions the way you want to, let's incorporate that running back in there. And maybe him and Brian Johnson are working on that together. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here as we're talking Eagles in July and waiting for the season to kick off. But I wouldn't be shocked, because as much as I want them to keep using Hurts in a way where he's dynamic, and I know they will, I'm sure to some level they're going to peel it back because they did pay him the fat bag. And Howie's like, look, this is my investment, damn it. Let's not be too foolish.
Balancing act, which the Eagles are going to have to pull this year, which should be fun to watch and debate. All right. 11 days from now, the Eagles will report. 12 days from now, they'll have their first practice. Johnny Mack will be there for the 37 minutes they allow him to be on the field. Will there be a rotation at right guard? Will there be a competition at right guard? Is it Jurgens' job to lose, or do they want to keep flexibility just in case that Kelsey guy, I think most people have heard of Kelsey, the starting center, does catch some kind of injury? And, oh, by the way, he takes a lot of downtime that he's earned during practice. How's Jurgens to right guard going to go this year in camp for the Eagles?
It seems like it's his job to lose. Now, you, John, would probably know a little bit more as you're in the day-to-day grind. I do remember seeing something from Zach Berman not too long ago mentioning Steen about, the intrigue on him and all. But, I think after what happened last year, and I know they wanted to try and cross-train him a bit, but then the Jason Kelsey stuff happened and he wasn't practicing. So then they slotted him in at center, and Jeff Stoughton didn't have the time to work with him maybe as much as he would like to cross-train him throughout the line. But, yeah, I think it is Cam Jurgens because, is it a hard sell to say we drafted this guy a couple of years back and now he's not playing again? Or you could look at it the other way and say, well, Steen, look, that means we got a snag in Steen if that means that Cam Jurgens is just chilling and he's not performing yet. But I would think that he's going to get the nod here as long as he goes out there and does his job. But, John, what do you think about that? You're in more of the –
Well, here's the thing with Steen. They want him to be the right guard. The question is when. They always – and remember, part of as good as Jason Kelsey has been, and obviously we all know how good he's been, the Eagles set up the offensive line to protect his lack of size. They had Brandon Brooks for years. It was Isaac Seumalo, Landon Dickerson on the other side. Big, physical guys that can maybe help Kelsey out. That is one weakness. When you go up, and Jason will tell you this, Linval Joseph, when he was on the Giants, he used to give Kelsey fits because he was the strongest player in the NFL. Vita Vea gave him fits at that playoff game. Just big physical guys. And they want that big body to sort of protect the undersized center. So long term, Cam Jurgens is going to be the center. He's undersized like Kelsey. That's why they want Tyler Steen to be the right guard. But here's the problem. He's a rookie. He played left tackle and right tackle in college. Never played right guard before. People think Stoutland's a miracle worker. He is for the most part. He's going to make, wherever you are, if he's working with Hunter Brody, you're going to be better.
That's right.
After you're working. If he's working with Jody McDonald, Jody's going to be better. But that doesn't mean you're going to be starting right guard NFL caliber right away. Isaac is a great point of this. Isaac is left here as a very good player, as a Pro Bowl level player, but it took him a couple years. It took him a couple years to get to that point. I don't know if Tyler Steen can make that transition right away. So Cam Jurgens is basically going to have to do it.
Yeah, I see it the same way for sure. But yeah, it's fascinating. It's funny though with Isaac because when you look at this offensive line for a while, he was the one to get all the blame and the fans were screaming at him. And there were times where he did struggle early on, as you mentioned. But man, it's a spoiled fan base with that O-line. If Isaac Seumalo's the worst one on it.
Very spoiled. Offensive line wise. Yeah, you're right.
What, Jody? You didn't think Isaac was good either?
He loves Isaac.
I'll play Eagles fan here for you.
Okay.
Is Isaac Seumalo a Pittsburgh Steeler now because he was it a false start or did he jump up? He moved too early in the Super Bowl right before Jalen Hurts fumbled the football. It was 3rd and 1. Isaac took the penalty. All of a sudden, it's 3rd and 6. Next thing you know, Jalen unforced error, dropped the ball. Kenzie picks it up, goes into the end zone. Is that why Isaac Seumalo is no longer an Eagle?
No, but did you rewatch the whole game?
I've rewatched it several times.
I'm saying I know that was the big point over the last 24 hours over there. I didn't know if you went for the whole rewatch.
Oh yeah, WIP rewatch. I was wondering why is everybody rewatching the Super Bowl? Evidently they did something with rewatching the Super Bowl. I think Isaac got $8 million a year from Pittsburgh. Yeah, too expensive.
Yep, there's your answer. Financial.
And I think he deserved the money. I was an Isaac guy. I thought he was a great player, and I think he will be missed, whether it's Jurgens or Steen. If you're breaking down game film afterwards, will they get as good right guard play this year as they did last year?
No.
My guess is going to be no. I don't even know if it's going to be close. Will it have a massive effect and change the Eagles' overall offensive line? I don't know about that because the other 4 guys are so good, but I think they're going to miss Isaac Seumalo.
Yeah, I think we can all agree. I think he was one of the most underrated players on the team. I mean, Kelsey swears by him, Lane swears by him, Stoutland loves him. I remember when you're struggling early in his career. Remember during the Super Bowl season, they wanted him to be the starting left guard, and they had to bench him for Stefan Wisniewski.
That's right.
And somebody asked Stoutland, it was the next season, if they were thinking about moving on from Isaac, and he looked at him like he had three heads. He said, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, he loves him, but you can't pay everybody. I mean, the Eagles would love to have Javon Hargrave back. You can't pay him $21 million. And when you have all the depth they have at defensive tackle, they'd love to have everybody back, but you had to pick and choose. So I'll go down that route with you, Hunter. Howie Roseman versus Nick Sirianni. Who's more important?
Who? Howie Roseman.
Yeah.
Yeah, Howie Roseman's more important. There's just the whole roster construction of like, this is no knock on Nick Sirianni, but I do think it's more the nature of the position. It's easier to find a good head coach than it is to find someone that understands every angle of a GM, like Howie does, the financial side on top of, being able to get some of these players, whether there's a good team around him, scouting department, this or that, all that stuff. But it's way more difficult to get someone in the trenches in the GM room, I think, than it is to find a head coach. But that's no knock at all on Sirianni.
Here's where I think Sirianni's going to be judged this year, or at least. No, let me state this correctly. Here's where I'm going to judge Sirianni this year. The job that the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator do, because it's my belief, and John would know better than me because he's down there all the time. I think those were both Sirianni hires. We go back and forth between how much influence does the general manager have, the owner have with filling out the coaching staffs here in Philadelphia. We know that there's been different times and different influences and changes. And I think that they kind of went hands off with Sirianni this year and let him pick and choose how he wanted to replace the two coordinators who went out the door. Yeah, both of these guys need to do a good job coming in. It's funny to say that that's a big responsibility of the coach, but picking his right-hand men are very important. Do you think the Eagles will be as good, better, or not as good at the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator positions that Sirianni filled?
Big shoes to fill, but I think that these guys are absolutely capable of doing that for sure, especially, like I said, that Brian Johnson. I'm like thrilled to see what this is all about. Remind me again, though, of who left upset because they thought they were going to get the DC job.
Bernard Wilson.
Yes.
I was going to say, that's a Nick Sirianni hire. And to be blunt, the reason Denard's not here is because he wanted to change things a little bit, and Nick wants to run the same philosophy. So the same philosophy that everybody hates. That's why Sean Desai is here.
Well, it's important to note this stuff too, because we know how the Doug Peterson thing went, and towards the end, it was hostile and all that. So yeah, I think that's a good point, Jody. It's like we need to look at this hire in Nick Sirianni and see his ability. Like the front office trusts him enough to be able to do this, while the last regime who won a Super Bowl, they felt they had to put their hands on more. So they're giving him more of a leash, and maybe he deserves that, or maybe they screwed up the way they handled Doug. I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. But I think the head coach should have the opportunity to do that. It's like when you handcuff a manager and say you're not allowed to put the lineup card out every night. It's coming from the GM or the analytics staff. It's like, well, wasn't that part of this? Is you give them the free range to work and put whoever they want to bat lead off and all that stuff? Well, with the head coach, if you trust the guy who's calling the plays every Friday or Sunday, and putting together the game plan every single week, you got to give them a chance to hire their guys and bring out their whole philosophy. So I'm going to look at that angle pretty heavily as well, but I feel confident in the two guys that are here.
And correct me if I'm wrong, John, here, but Brian Johnson is quarterback coach, and Howie Roseman hire as much as a Nick Sirianni hire.
Yes. But Nick didn't have a previous relationship with Brian Johnson.
But Brian Johnson as the offensive coordinator, that's Sirianni's call.
Yes,
because he had him underneath and saw that he had to.
Brian's
he did, and that's why he gave him the job.
Brian's kind of interesting because the Eagles didn't want to lose him. And if they didn't promote him to offensive coordinator, they would have lost him to be an offensive coordinator elsewhere.
Who do you think would have hired him?
Carolina was heavy in on him. There was another team.
Would Shane Steichen snag him?
But potentially Shane might snag him if you put him in that position. There was another team though, and I'll try to look it up in the break, but there were two teams. I know Carolina was one of them. Now the only reason I don't think it's important because it's not like I think the offensive staff is a lot more. I mean, Nick's an offensive guy. It's his. It doesn't matter. The titles to me are kind of irrelevant, to be honest, because they all sort of work together. Kevin Patullo, and I've been saying this for years, is the closest guy to Nick Sirianni, and he was the passing game coordinator. Now he's been given Hunter the associate head coach tag. You know, you give him that Cheers title. I like to say it if you like old TV sitcoms to make him happy. I don't know. He's just close. And I think if they weren't afraid of losing Brian, he might have been the offensive coordinator, but that's just a guess.
Well, I remember that being the buzz. I mean, when that whole thing was happening and they were trying to figure out who was going to take that next step and be that OC, his name was getting thrown around there.
You remember when Nick got COVID and was in danger of missing a game? The head coach was going to be Kevin Patullo.
Yep.
The head coach of that game. I forget what game it was, but the head coach was going to be Kevin Patullo to the point where he was doing press conferences with us, Zoom conferences. So yeah, he's really close to Nick Sirianni. But the more interesting, because Nick isn't as involved with the defensive side, except he wants what he wants. And he wants to limit explosive plays, and he wants to win the turnover battle. And that's why they play the stupid philosophy they play. And that's why Sean Desai is here. So
I don't want to think about it. Not yet. Wait until September, 13th, 7th, whatever it is.
But Sean is better at framing it than Jonathan Gannon.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. His press con, it's funny. It kind of slipped under the radar a little bit because maybe there were other sports things going on, but I don't know.
His press conference was great.
I agree. But Nick Sirianni sucked, and look how good he is.
Yeah, that's true.
It just always makes me laugh that Vic Fangio's name will be forever utilized here in town until the head coach that's here is no longer here because, it's going to be his defense that the Eagles are going to be running. All right, Hunter, when I texted and asked you to come on the show, I asked you if you wanted to talk about the fact that you've got that much more time for Broad's Media these days because 97.5, The Fanatic, decided your services were no longer needed in the afternoon drive. Both John and I are on record already that we think they made a big mistake. How did it come down? How did the parting of the ways go?
Yeah, look, I drove in Monday around noon when I get to the studio normally, and I got a phone call from the program director that said, we'd like to, speak to you. Unfortunately, Beasley Media had to make some decisions and, kind of figured it was going in the direction it was as I was walking up the elevator there. But, yeah, look, I can't thank them enough for the opportunity for what they did. I was there for over 2.5 years. I had a blast. I spoke to a lot of people in this industry about what's going on here. Obviously, I'm very young and still got a long ways ahead of me. And they all said, look, if you're going to make it in this business, there's 3 or 4 more of these coming your way. That's inevitable. And, you guys know how it is. I've seen it from the other side. I've watched great people in this industry. Jamie Lynch at 97.5 The Fanatic went through this. Rich Hoffman just went through. There's so many great people that this unfortunately goes to, and it's just my turn for it, and it's going to keep our foot on the gas, keep attacking Broad's Media, see where it goes, and no hard feelings. I get it. It's a nasty, nasty cutthroat business, and I had my guard up the whole time with it, and it gets everyone, unfortunately.
And the worst, you never get to say goodbye in this industry. Never get to say goodbye. So I want to give you that opportunity to say goodbye if you want to say goodbye to your 97.5 listeners.
Goodbye to the people.
Yeah. Before I get there, I got one more Eagles thing for you, and that's Netflix, the quarterback show. Have you watched it?
I have not, but it's on my rate. So it's funny you say last night it got real big on my feed for whatever reason. I guess maybe my TikTok algorithm, but I put it in my head like, all right, I know what I'm watching, pretty soon. So it's on the list.
Marcus Mariota is one of the three quarterbacks they sort of follow and document, and it's pretty ugly, the ending in Atlanta. And I told Jody it doesn't come across the best way. He's a backup quarterback, so I don't think it's going to be a big deal. But you think when people get to watch this thing and they frame it the way they frame it, that it could be an issue, saying, I think a lot of people think the Eagles made an upgrade at backup quarterback. I'm not sure they did.
Maybe my opinion changes when I actually see it, but if it's ugly, it's ugly. I don't know. I always have a lot of confidence in the Brandon Grahams, the Jason Kelce's, the Lane Johnsons. I don't know how much fun can you have when you're down in Atlanta and it's a disaster the way that it is.
Yeah.
Compared to a winning.
Not an Arthur Smith fan.
You know what? It's funny. I'm not now, but at the time when he was available, I didn't mind the hire. Like, you go from what you were there with Atlanta and you bring him in, Tennessee, OC. It's like, hey, maybe, there's something to it. But
he might be one of those guys that's a good offensive coordinator, but the
doesn't
big job's a little bit too big of a gig for him.
Maybe like Gannon, just as a DC. And the head coach jumped too much.
No, he wasn't a good DC. You didn't hear that, Hunter?
Well, listen, I gotta agree with the irrationals on that side. There's always a little bit of irrational in me, right? I mean, I'm human. I like that side of my irrational feelings.
Fair enough.
Do you think that Gannon will be a failure as a head coach for what reason? That he's married to the
cornball, man. He's a cornball. I don't think these people are going to respect the hell out of him.
He is a cornball. There's no question about that.
Nick is, but
I was going to say, how about the head coach of the Eagles?
Yeah.
If you put two guys side by side, who's the bigger cornball, to use your phrase?
That's a fair point.
Nick Sirianni or Rich Ken? Who's the bigger one? Oh, it's Sirianni, and it's not really close.
But here's the difference. Sirianni comes off authentic. Corny, it's real. Gannon is like... I think he tries to
me he's faux cornball. Who would choose to be faux cornball?
Faux cornball.
But no, you become corny when you think you got swag and he carries himself like he's cool, but he's not. So it comes off douchey. I don't know, man. I'm anti-Gannon. I think he's a clown.
Yeah, you are.
Remember, bro,
if you're going faux cornball, you are absolutely anti-Gannon.
Remember, Hunter, he was cool for 10 seconds.
That G-Wagon.
Yeah, when he put that window down and said, we're going to F and gut him or whatever the hell he said. Eagles fans loved him for 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, went the wrong way thereafter. Hunter, last thing. John kind of teed you up for it. You chose not to. I'm going to give you another chance here.
Yeah.
Anybody you want to say thank you to? Anybody you want to say to? Be it either fans or former employees or
please give me these.
You gotta have a specific emotion about somebody. If there's your favorite caller, how badly you're gonna miss.
Give me the worst caller.
Well, there's a lot of them.
Positive or negative. I'll take either one, but you gotta single somebody out for us, Hunter.
Listen, you know what? I'm gonna go the positive route, and I'm going positive. Listen, I worked with Tyrone Johnson for a couple of years now. We started Saturday afternoons, actually Saturday mornings, 9 a.m. to noon, and I didn't really know him then. They just kind of threw us together, and he's taught me a lot about this. The approach every single day, how hard to work in this industry. A lot of things behind the scenes that I'll take away from and apply that to anything that I do. Not even just this industry, anything I do working wise. His approach and mental, the way he attacks things is it's very interesting and it's eye-opening and I love it. Like I wouldn't change it for the world. Like I go back and I think about, okay, what was this experience all about? Why was I supposed to be at that spot on that show? And it's a lot that I learned from him. So I'm going to just say thank you to him and Ricky Bowe and Jen and the crew. But we worked together for a couple years now and I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Hunter, I thought you did a great job on the show. I feel that they made a mistake, but again, you and I don't really count. It's the people who make those decisions that do, and you kind of reference people in this business. Oh, I've been fired plenty.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for a long time. I've been told my services are no longer needed. And yeah, the first day, couple days, you question yourself and you shake your head. Oh, you get over it real fast. It's as soon as you get the next good gig, you forget about the people that made a mistake by letting you go. And yeah, every once in a while you clear something out of your eye to feel better about yourself. But before you know it, you're feeling perfectly fine. And yeah, you will be coming on Birds 365 plenty all season long. Thanks for jumping in with us today, bud.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Have a good one, guys.
Hunter Brody with the hat. He's always a hat guy. He can wear a hat better than either.
Got the Flyers too, repping the Flyers, baby. Rebuilding. Keith Jones, do it. Good. Although they had that scandal where they're talking down to the Inquirer reporter. That
did not go well.
That did not go well.
Yeah, we're not getting off on a Flyers tangent here. We only got a couple of minutes left for the day. John McMullen, Jody McDonald coming back to put a bow on the show.